Hey everyone, welcome back to the Recovery Rebellion, or if this is your first time, welcome. My name is Tara Grace. I go by Burn the Stigma on social media, and this is the podcast where we talk about the stuff most people avoid when it comes to treatment, recovery, drug policy, and just the whole machine that is failing everyone. So lately, I have been posting more on LinkedIn, and it has been such a different experience. So I want to talk about that a little bit today. Also, I know I haven't uploaded in a few weeks now, and I apologize. I have like 5 episodes to edit and get up. And of course, I'm recording an episode right now. I'm like, okay, I just need to record an episode right now that I can just throw up there real quick to let everyone know that like, hey, I'm still here. I actually had an interview that I did with Sobriety Bestie, Kirsten from Sobriety Bestie. That's going to go up this weekend. I did an interview today with Emma from the Group Thinking podcast. So I have a couple of people that I've interviewed so far. I have a whole bunch more that I am going to interview that I've talked to a whole bunch of people about coming on. So I'm super excited about getting, more interviews and just talking to more people and such. But then also I have a few solo episodes that I need to edit and get up. And honestly, at this point, it's like, maybe I'll just take some clips from each of those, because what happens is like I'll be in a mood and I'll want to talk about something, and then if too much time goes by, then when it's time to edit it, I'm like, I don't know, like I don't know if I really want to talk about that, or I've been really feeling some kind of way about just recovery content and even some harm reduction content and just and like I don't want to be mean, because some of the stuff that I don't like, I've done, like there was a time that I didn't know any better either, but then some of these people, they're just fucking fake, dude, and I can't take it. Like I just can't take it. And I think that I need to not get off of TikTok, but I feel like TikTok is kind of bringing me down in a couple of ways. In one way, I always end up engaging with these negative commenters, which honestly I like because it gives me things to think about and other content ideas. But then the problem is that I never get to talk about those other things because I just always stay going back and forth with these people, which I do think is important. I know that I'm never gonna get through to any of them. I don't go back and forth with them for them. I go back and forth for the people who are seeing their comments, and when people say crazy shit about, just not wanting to do the work or just being incapable of being honest, all of the things that they say, I just want to reply to those people so that the people reading those comments can see the other side and not just the same old bullshit that they hear. And one of the things, when I say same old bullshit, one of the things that really, like TikTok especially, I really feel like just TikTok, honestly, when it comes to the subject of harm reduction, I think it's a lot of well-meaning people. Let's let this go by, this fire truck here. But I think there's a lot of people who have good intentions. They make content about something, but they may not do a whole lot of their own research, so then they end up just repeating what other people say, and then it ends up just being like the same few stats that are, said over and over again, or the same few points, and it's just, I don't know, like there's something about it that I don't want to be a part of. People are putting all of us into one group, and I'm by myself. Like I am by myself. I support people. I love people. I wouldn't do this if I didn't love people, like I made it out on the other side. Like I made it through the treatment industry. I made it through the recovery industry. I made it through the illicit supply, because it wasn't nearly as fucking bad as it is now. But I was fortunate that I got to do a lot of a safer supply with the OCs, a lot safer than the shit that's out there now, right? And that even with the heroin that I was doing was a lot safer. And even when the supply started switching over to illicit fent, that illicit fent was a hell of a lot safer than the illicit fent that we have today, that majority of it isn't even just fent now, right? You got the xylazine, the nitazines, the medetimidines, like BTMPS or whatever the heck, like all of these things. I can't even keep up anymore, right? Because what did we talk about before? The more that we go after a substance, the more unsafe it gets. And I really feel like opiates is the perfect example of that. I mean, just look at it. We went after the pills. I'm getting so off track. But yeah, TikTok can be just really toxic, and especially because people, like, they hide behind these fake accounts. So there's nothing attached to them. And one of the cool things that I've been doing is I've been writing, just not a lot, but I've written a few posts on LinkedIn, and it is a much different vibe. The big difference on LinkedIn is that people's profiles are professional, right? So they approach conversations much more respectful than someone who is hiding behind, user 187565543 with no profile picture. And it's been really interesting and almost kind of surreal, right? Like, there have definitely been people that I have not agreed with. And for example, there was this doctor, and I will read you, his post is not long. It's a doctor that I'm pretty sure does not attend AA, okay? Like, I'm not going to straight up ask him, because I feel like if he wanted to disclose that information, he would have. But this was the post that he had written. And it's titled, "Why Labeling 12-Step as Abstinence Only is Inaccurate." There's an important distinction often missed in discussions about 12-step programs. They're abstinent-focused, not abstinence-only. While the ultimate goal is sobriety, these programs welcome anyone seeking help regardless of their current state. I mean, that tells you right there. He can't go to meetings, because no, they don't. People who are under the influence are not excluded from meetings. 12-step meetings often include members in active addiction. This inclusive approach recognizes that recovery is a process, not a prerequisite. Mislabeling these programs as abstinence only misrepresents their fundamental philosophy supporting people on their journey towards sobriety. Understanding this distinction is essential for anyone referring people to these programs or discussing addiction treatment options. So I said, respectfully, I disagree. While the only official requirement is a desire to stop, that in itself makes the program clear. Abstinence. I recognize that my lived experience isn't universal, but I think most people who have been around the program for a while have heard something along the lines of, "They will make you sick before you make them well," when it comes to befriending someone who is using. Because his post was like implying that people are just allowed to struggle through the process, right? And that's just not true. If you're using, you are used as like a cautionary tale, as like, oh, that person's not serious about their recovery, like, and like I just said, like that whole, they're gonna make you sick before you make them well. Okay, so when it comes to befriending someone who is using, yes, technically you're still welcome, but many groups quietly, and in most PPG, step study, and big book groups, not so quietly, enforce an all or nothing culture where anyone who hasn't quit completely is tolerated at best and bullied and driven out at worst. I say this as someone who has been a part of the bullying when I was a thumper. I've seen many who weren't abstinent that were shamed, whispered about, or outright ostracized until they were proven that they were ready to surrender. It's hardly a safe environment for someone still using. I think the program, when written, was intended to be more welcoming to those using, but that's not the reality in most meeting spaces. And if the goal is abstinence, I'm going to call it an abstinent-based program. In my opinion, it's a faith-based abstinence program, but that's a different conversation. And there was a little bit of back and forth, but it was super kind. It was not rude or disrespectful. It was a very kind back and forth. And what I just don't understand is the need to make that distinction between the abstinent-based and the abstinence only, especially when if you are only treated well when you are abstinent, then it is an abstinence only program. Setting someone up to think that they're going to be okay if they are struggling and still using while they're involved in 12-step. There may be some meetings that are accepting of that, but I'm going to go out on a limb and say that most of them wouldn't be. Right? And that's not just based off of my lived experience. I've been speaking out about this for years. So I have had many conversations, many comments, many messages from people who have also been through the program. And I'm going to say you're just not really allowed to be getting fucked up while you're going to meetings. It's just not really a thing. They're not going to treat you the same, right? You're going to feel different. And most people hide it, right? Like I know that there was meetings I chaired high because I didn't want to tell anybody. So yeah, the LinkedIn experience has been different, and it's a little bit intimidating because a lot of these people have letters after their names that are commenting on my posts. You know, they got the PhDs, the MDs, all these letters, and the only letter that I've had after my name was the T before my prison number. So it's different, but it's interesting because so much now we're talking in the field about lived experience. Like in Massachusetts now, there is a lived experience panel that you can be a part of, which, you know, I joined, of course. But obviously lived experience makes a huge difference in these conversations because, I mean, look at that. That was a doctor. Let me see how many letters he has after his name. Yeah, he's got PhD, MPH after his name, right? That guy is talking about AA from a way that it's just not how it is, you know? Like, that is not the reality. And how many professionals recommend 12-step because they think it's such a different environment than what most people actually encounter. And that is why lived experience is so important, because you have people like myself saying, hey, you know, the picture that has been painted for you is not the reality of what's going on in these spaces. Talking about treatment reform and recovery reform online, right? Like, it's complicated, especially when you are going against what most people think is the truth about substance use disorder. Like, even people who don't know anything about 12 steps, so many people believe the whole, you know, once an addict, always an addict, that you're always one bad day from losing everything. Like, it's always going to be a battle. It's always going to be a struggle. And I feel so bad because I feel like so many people are going to be like, yeah, it is a struggle for me to stay sober every single day like that, you know, and it's been X amount of years. It's been years and years and years. I really feel like abstinence recovery, 12-step based recovery prevents people from working on what they need to work on because they're so busy working on their sobriety that they're never working on the actual anxiety or depression or whatever else they got going on that's actually causing them to use substances as a coping skill. Like, I really don't feel like substance use disorder is like a primary disorder, right? Like, I really feel like substance use disorder is a symptom of something else. And unfortunately, majority of the treatment focuses on the substance use disorder. But I feel like if you treat the mental health, whatever is going on, right? Or just figuring out coping skills, whatever it is, once you treat that, the unhealthy relationship with the substances starts to not be a thing because you're learning other coping skills and you're learning other things. Like, every single time, like right now you're seeing it live, right? With my podcast, I was doing really well. I was kind of getting regular, like, for me, you know, and then I fell off for a few weeks. Now, back in the day when I was working a program, I'd be like, oh, it's my disease. But now I know, like, no, it's just my ADHD. It's probably also hormones. Like, I'm pretty sure my period's coming at any point in time. And like the 2 weeks before my period comes, my mental health, the focus that I have, it's not there. Like, the energy level drops. Like, I'm just like not feeling it. I'm so thankful that all of these highs and lows of just life, sometimes I'm not thinking like that's my disease, I'm not working my recovery hard enough, and what else do I gotta do, like my disease is trying to kill me. Like, I'm so glad that I don't live there anymore, and I actually know that, hey, like I got issues, right, that I gotta work on. I gotta work on my organization. There's so many things. I'm such an idea girl, but I can't stay consistent. My consistency sucks. I can never follow through on anything. Like, it's like I start strong and then I fall off, and like I want to stop that. And I really hope like this podcast is going to be something that I can figure that the hell out, because this does mean a lot to me. And the more people that I meet, like even I had a couple of professionals, like I sound so dorky, I'm a couple professionals, but I have had people reach out to me, people who I would look at them and be like, wow, that person's really smart, and they're telling me like, keep doing what you're doing, like we need your voice is important. I have so many people in my comments, in my DMs, and it's like, I just need to show up, I just need to show up, and it doesn't have to be perfect. Like, there's so many things that we can talk about. I don't know what's wrong with me. Well, I do, I mean, I'm neurodivergent and my ADHD is fucking off the chains, and I don't even really like to talk about my ADHD anymore, because I feel like social media has just made it to where it's like these content creators. I swear, man, content creation has just ruined so many things. Like, in a way, it's been so good, right? But for example, with the ADHD, I feel like some people have made it a not serious thing, and I think there's already enough stigma around it. Like, people just think, oh, like you can't pay attention. They don't realize the whole executive dysfunction, the way that I will just sit here for literal hours trying to figure out what I need to do, what's the next step to do. I'll be like, okay, I need to work on all this shit. What am I going to work on? And I can't make a decision on what I'm going to work on. It's not just I can't sit still and I can't focus. I feel like that's what everyone thinks it is. And the rejection sensitivity, oh my God, that the moodiness, like sometimes like I'm just like, bam, the on and off switch, the impulsiveness. Again, all of these things that I thought were my disease when I learned about 12-step, right? When I was in rehab and you learn about the restless, irritable, and discontent. I mean, that went hands in hand with my ADHD. But yeah, I hate even talking about it sometimes now. I feel like now I'd rather just say neurodivergent rather than ADHD, because content creators have like killed that for me. It gives me kind of like the ick now, as silly as that sounds, because I feel like they've just, not all of them, obviously there are some great content creators out there. We see the same thing in the recovery and the harm reduction space. There are people who are doing it really well, and there are people who are doing it for clicks. And like, a person who is doing it for clicks is not going to give the same care than somebody who is doing it because this is something that they are passionate about. There are content creators, and then there are advocates, right? And there are content creators who are cosplaying as advocates. And I mean, you see it in a lot of the spaces. You see it in the prison space. You see it in the mental health space. You definitely see it in the recovery and harm reduction space. I mean, I'm sure it's like that in everything, right? Like, there are people that aren't there for the same reasons as other people, and it sucks, because you have people spreading so much misinformation and stigma, while you have other people who are trying to break those barriers down and correct that misinformation and stigma. And it's never ending. A creator, right, on Facebook who has almost 1 million followers and was happy about the Halt Fentanyl Act being passed, right? And it's like, we have so many advocates who don't know what the fuck they are talking about. And I don't understand why, but those are always the people that get the huge following. I think it's because they do it for clicks, right? So they are trying to figure out how to get their content seen the most. I don't play any of those games. I don't try to have a hook. I probably should. I really got to get it together though, because I can't take like the more misinformation that I see, the more mad I get. I mean, I think all of us do, right? Because it's just like, enough is enough. I guarantee you there are people who think this executive order that seems like, I haven't read it, so I don't want to speak on it 100%. I will definitely record an episode where we will talk about it once I actually have time to read through it and understand it. But from what I understand, it seems like they're just going to be able to force them into treatment. And if we know anything, like if anybody was looking at actual data, they would know that forced treatment kills people. And then it's like, what are these treatment centers? What are these places going to be like? Is it, since RFK Jr. has his hands in this, I'm sure it's going to be a 12-step based place. If anybody was looking at any data, they would see that 12-step based places don't have a high success rate. Abstinent based treatment alone doesn't have a high success rate. Yale did that study that showed that people who went to abstinent-based treatment had a 77% higher chance of overdosing than people who didn't go to abstinent-based treatment. And they literally said, now we can say that going to abstinent-based treatment is no better than getting no treatment whatsoever. Like, you'd actually technically be better off staying in chaotic use, because at least you have something in your system, than being forced into treatment before you're ready to stop. Because once you're forced into treatment, you have nothing in your system, and then you get out, and then you go get high. Well, having nothing in your system just greatly increased the chances of you overdosing. So please, you do pick up, please utilize things like Safe Spot hotline, the Never Use Alone hotline, if you're not around other people, because you greatly increase your risk of dying. And the supply that's out there today, like the shit that's out there today, is no fucking joke. It's so frustrating. But I know that there are people in recovery who support that, who think that is a great idea. There are so many people in recovery who don't support harm reduction. And it sucks, because I get it. When you see places like LA and places like Mass and Cass, you can be like, well, I see your harm reduction's working out real well. But it's like, but we're not seeing harm reduction fully being implemented. People are doing the best that they can with what we got, right? But there's no overdose there's no prevention centers. There's no low barrier housing, right? Like, most of the housing that you go to for treatment, sober living, you have to be sober, right? So there's no place that people can go and kind of work on reducing their use, or, trying to figure out other life skills before they are completely abstinent, right? Like, we expect them to be completely abstinent before we offer any services or do any sort of work with them, even though we have data that shows that people make changes and people are more successful when they don't have to be abstinent first, when they can start making goals, and those goals motivate them to continue to change, because now they're starting to see good in themselves, and it's motivating them, and now they can see a light at the end of the tunnel, right? And then to top it all off, the illicit supply that we have out there today, like, we need a safe, regulated supply. People are always going to use drugs. We have a safe, regulated supply with alcohol. Most states have a safe, regulated supply with cannabis. It's not like this is something that we have no idea how to do. Not to mention that back in the day, you used to be able to order heroin through like the Sears catalog. So it's not like we haven't had a safe, regulated supply of substances before, because we have. The more that we criminalize it, the more unsafe, like halt fentanyl, like that's not even our biggest concern anymore. Like, now it's all the other shit that they're putting in it that naloxone doesn't reverse. If we take illicit fent completely out, right? If dealers are like, all right, well, fuck it, I'm not even gonna deal with that shit, I'm just gonna use the xylazine and medetimidine and nitazines and all the other shit, none of those are opioids. So your naloxone isn't gonna help if you have no illicit fent in there, right? Which is why it's super important to do rescue breaths. We got to do those rescue breaths, because rescue breaths are going to help no matter what is in the person's system. But it's just, it's literally, the more that we criminalize this substance, the more unsafer they're getting right in front of our face. And yet people are like, yeah, that's it. I'm so glad, the government's finally doing something. People are dying all around us. Fucking wake up, dude. Like, I know that it sounds so radical. When I first heard about safe supply, I was like, that is fucking ridiculous. That is absolutely ridiculous. But it makes sense because think like when I even think about when I was shooting dope, like I wanted to keep my job. I wanted to still do all the things that I was doing, but I would end up losing my job because I would have to, like, if my dude was late and I couldn't meet him before work, well, I mean, I'm going to meet him before I go to work. So now I'm calling in late, or I'm calling in sick, or dude is gonna be leaving soon, so I gotta leave work early. Like, all of the things, like if I could have just gone and picked up a script, or, you know, if I could have just gone and got my dose in the morning, I would have gone on and went to my job and been on my merry little way. And no, it's not going to completely get rid of the illicit supply. We still have cannabis that is technically part of the quote unquote illicit supply, right? But people are always shitting on harm reduction. It's like, think of how much worse it would be if we didn't have it. Naloxone saved my life 4 times. What if that wasn't accessible? I'd most likely be dead one of those times. Like, how many people's lives have been saved by naloxone? A shit ton. Then with diseases, with syringes, right? How many more diseases would be spread if people didn't have access? What about so many people have switched from IV use to smoking it because the illicit supply is fucking wild? But how many people wouldn't have done that if they didn't have access to smoking equipment? People are like, you're just enabling people to use drugs. Like, I don't know about you, but I never asked for permission, right? Like, I was using drugs whether I was in a good position to or not, you know. But it's, you know, none of this is 100% this or 100% that, but we just have to do what makes the most sense, and we are not doing that, and we are getting further and further away from it. And the more that we lean towards traditional abstinent-based recovery, the more people will die. All right, guys, well, thank you so much for listening, and I will catch you next time.